The story in the paper today is telling us about the warmest Christmas ever and the prospect of wearing short sleeves outside and not having the heating unit of your house on. That just because you are not using your heating unit today doesn't mean you should delay further having that unit checked. And you need to have it checked by the real pros who drive around in the big orange vans. These are the crew of Superior Air Systems in the big orange vans all around Chattanooga. Superior Air Systems, call for a quote and call for service now. Don't delay this important change of season check on your cooling and heating unit. The number is 886-6602, 886-6602. And also, I'm suggesting that you, my listener, exercise a constitutional right through a privilege, which I know sounds kind of strange, but since we can't, the Constitution is not being respected anymore. You can't carry your weapon on your person, even concealed, without it being regulated. Now, the Constitution does allow for the regulation of the wearing of arms, but the legislature has gone well past that and has, in an anti-black statute that got its origins in the 1840s, it says that you can be charged with carrying a weapon with the intent to go armed, which means that you really can't carry a gun on you at all if you don't have a license to carry concealed, which is apparently the only lawful method of having a weapon. And of course, there's the new law about having a gun in your car. That's also allowed. But get a class in training on how to do that if you're going to get a permit. Take the Tennessee handgun permit class at Carter Shooting Supply. The number is 344-1099. That's 344-1099. That's Carter Shooting Supply in Harrison and out on Highway 58. Take that class and you get a good experience there. Not too expensive, and you can have your permit to carry concealed. This is David Tulis, my name. I do thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're the station where you report, the world decides. I'm on YouTube, and you can check to see whether I'm in proper costume today, or whether I've maybe gone without a tie. That has occasionally happened, and occasionally I've been here without having shaven my jowls. But ordinarily I'm spiffed up because I know you are important, and I view my few minutes with you, my listener, as important as if I were going to church or if I were going to a job interview or maybe to court, right, or a wedding. I would wear my best clothes, and so I am here encountering you, and I'm glad that you're able to afford me just a couple of minutes of your time. If you have 6% cranial capacity available, you can tune us in on the job there at your computer. Just type in hotnewstalkradio.com, hotnewstalkradio.com. And there will stream instantly on your computer. Also on smartphones through the TuneIn radio app. That's where we are globally. And also we're on Periscope, the great little fun projection of video interviews and so on. Online through Twitter. That's Periscope. And we are AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the Sean Hannity Cowherd station. Join the herd and listen and join us at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Make sure that you have Ari's at your Harbor Lights restaurant in your sights, there by the glittering waters of Lake Chickamauga, by the marina. It's in Hickson, 9700 Hickson Pike. And it's open Tuesday through Sunday. It's closed Monday. And there's a 3 to 7 happy hour. And there's a great dinner offer that you can see in the billboard on Hickson Pike as you go north a few miles there to reach Ari's Harbor Lights restaurant. And it's $19.95 for two. And there's a great menu option for you and your beloved, just a little time away from the children and a time from the hubbub. You do need to get caught up, you and your beloved wife. So try Ari's. Ari's. Yes, locally owned and operated. You know that, right? And I know you exercise, as I do, this discretion, the discretion to favor local over national and to make the local entrepreneur prosper with your patronage. Because when you buy from a restaurant such as ours, you are supporting local economy. And you know what? I suggest that you do even better, that you pay with cash, because cash avoids the national economy credit card tax. which enriches the good people and enriches the issuers of credit, the endless surprise, the endless array of credit through the credit card companies, the multi-billion dollar companies that create this money from nothing. So pay with cash and save Ari's the tax. And my name is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. The story about the warmest Christmas ever is it talks about enhanced risk, right? Storms that are bizarre. Feature the Times Free Press website story says storms featuring golf ball sized hail and damaging winds up to 70 miles an hour. Well, we do live. This is not nature, right? This is not God. God is acting in this circumstance, no doubt, because he is in charge of providence, and nothing happens outside of his scope and dominions, if you will, outside of his sovereign decree. But the people who are making these conditions are people. The conditions are not naturally arrived at by weather systems or volcanic ash or El Niños and such things. There is massive interference with the circumstances of the atmosphere. Smithsonian magazine and on its website, Smithsonian.com, has a stab at an explanation for these things, and it's an oblique treatment of sky striping, which I'm the one here in Chattanooga to cover sky striping as a environmental story, a form of deliberate pollution, serving national security and other purposes. The story is by writer Sarah Zielinski at Smithsonian.com. Came out a week ago or so. I saw a reference to it at BBC.com. Is quoting NOAA's Charles Long. NOAA is the National Oceanic and Aeronautics Administration, and Long says he's talking about the haze over the sky. And I know you've noticed that the light has changed. Ask an artist sometime about that. Has the light changed? You can ask. Don't say why you're asking it, that you're thinking about chemtrailing, but no, just ask that question. Say, has the light changed? Maybe there's one or two, but there are one or two artists, painters, plein air painters in Chattanooga have noticed it. But the haze is caused by airplanes, and it's gradually whitening skies. The story says we might be actually conducting some unintentional geoengineering here. Long says he was giving a press conference last week at the American Geophysical Union's fall meeting in San Francisco. Long and his colleagues don't yet have enough data to show how much an effect the icy haze left by airplanes may be having on the climate, or whether it is contributing to global warming. So there's a mystery about this. But its existence demonstrates yet another way that humans, as we're called, might be altering the climate system, Long says, and you can see this with your own eyes. So here we have someone from NOAA saying you can see the results of these trails. Okay, I call them sky stripes. I don't want to be alarmist. I don't like the word chemtrail because it's a kind of a word of art, and it's a word that appends to the so-called conspiracy theory that the good people want to pretend is a villainous lie about how things really are. And so the discovery comes out of studies about how much sunlight reaches the Earth's surface. The energy is not constant from the 1950s to the 1980s. For instance, the sun seemed to slightly dim, and then, the story says, it started to brighten. The brightening, though, I would suggest is not that the sun is actually brighter. It's that the rays are diffused by the aerosol particulates that this program is depositing in at least the stratosphere, but maybe, according to Dr. Vernon Herndon, maybe in the troposphere, which is at 20,000. The stratosphere is at 40. The tropos is about 20. Long goes on to say, if it's not the sun, it must be the atmosphere responsible for the change. He said, high levels of pollution in the mid-20th century sent massive amounts of aerosols into the atmosphere where they blocked some of the sun's energy. But when places like the United States and Europe began polluting less, the amount of aerosols decreased and the sun appeared to slightly brighten. Long and his colleagues found intriguing data that something else is going on here. Some of the sun's light travels directly to the Earth's surface, but some of it gets scattered during the trip through the atmosphere. With less pollution, this diffuse light should have decreased, it should say declined, but instead it appeared to increase. We've got a mystery here. I think that this is a bit of bogusry. The sun is brightening because of the increase of deliberate aerosol injections. I surmise this. Pollution may have been reduced from these industrial economies, but the scattering of the light is because of the intensification, I would like to suggest to you, my listener, in the past 2 or 3 years of this program. Just look at our days of visitation over the county. Long thinks air traffic is the most likely source of these particles. And then the story talks about how exhaust contains aerosols and water vapor, which form ice crystals, right? Nuclei for ice crystals, which form the bright contrails seen in a plane's wake. Some of these contrails, scientists have found, can contribute to climate change. So what we have here is a sort of a surmise that innocent exhaust is causing the scattering of light and the either the cooling or the warming of the planet. The story is not quite clear on which is which and what the direction is going. As a contrail dissipates, at least behind an icy thin haze, the sky may appear cloud-free, but the particles are there until they fall out of the atmosphere. So notice that what happens, particles fall out of the atmosphere. If the program is deliberate, emitting aluminum, strontium, and barium and other articles from industrial waste, as Dr. Herndon suggests, then we know that these particles from coal fly ash come to the ground, come into your lungs. There's a mystery. And the Smithsonian Institution, in its website story of December 16th, is kind of trying to say, hey, there's something going on here, and we have to address it somehow, though we are simply going to scatter the details and scatter the narrative in a way that's going to be harder to read. And so I think we can do justice to the story there and surmise that there's a narrative running parallel to it that I think the one we have here at Nooganomics.com and AM 1240 that I think may be more on the mark, more likely to be true. Though, of course, we can't know for sure what's really happening up there. This is a program secured by secrecy and by diktat, by the swearing of silence by the parties involved. My name is David Tulis, and we are glad you're giving us a few minutes of your time. Give a few minutes of time stopping by at the One Stop Package Store in Saudi Daisy. This is at the Sunshine Market on Dayton Pike. At that market, you can buy in one store, you can buy your gas, your bread, and your smokes. And in the other store, you'll find One Stop Package. All new, all fresh, all big, best prices, and a huge selection of liquor, wine, and beer at One Stop Package. That's One Stop Package, a very competitive entrant into the marketplace in spirits. And here we are at Christmas. Spirits are certainly part of the celebration in many, many homes and many law offices, right? So make sure that you have an adequate supply. There's a 10% discount on purchase of any case of wines. You buy several bottles together, you get a good discount. Now, my name is David Tulis, and I just wanted to mention also that we're talking about Christmas celebration and the spirits of Christmas. Make sure that you have catering done this year by Choo Choo Barbecue. Choo Choo Barbecue is a place you can come in and eat today, right? Go there for lunch now. Well, not quite yet, but in an hour you can go for lunch there at Choo Choo Barbecue, trying out our local economy players. But the big thing is I want to mention is that catering is a specialty with Trip Bettis and Choo Choo Barbecue of Hickson. That's Choo Choo Barbecue of Hickson. Whether it's pork or chicken or beef, Choo Choo will come through for you. And you'll take your time to savor the secret rub that it has and its delicious, delicious smoked flavor. And you can multiply that out among your whole staff, you, my listener, at your office. Make sure you mention that you're a fan of Hot News Talk Radio, right? The Hot News Station. That's us. Hot News Talk Radio. That's Hot News Talk Radio. Or just, you can say David Tulis. I know that's kind of a weird name and one you're not likely to remember, but you do mention that if you can remember it. The name is David Tulis. Just say, hey, heard about you from David Tulis. And the number is 870-7894. That's 870-7894. We are concerned about several things that are about the modern state, and I need to get to the Christmas story. John Whitehead is the constitutional attorney, and he's having a little fun. He's so glowering as a writer. And he writes at LouRockwell.com, at the RutherfordInstitute.com website, the law firm that defends Christian liberties and many constitutional liberties. Well, what would Jesus have faced if he had been born in 2015? Well, rather than traveling to Bethlehem for the census, Joseph and Mary would have been given a 28-page American Community Survey. And the penalty for not responding to this invasive survey would have resulted in a fine of $5,000. Not true, by the way. It's not true because there's no liability statute in the census ordinance. There's no penalty. There's no obligational statute. But there is a penalty provision, no doubt there is. And that's where he's getting the $5,000. But there is no liability statute. Right? There's no liability to perform the community. Well, I need to get off that. I'll pass on here. I'm just moving on. Instead of being born in a manger, Jesus might have been born at home. And there would have been, of course, calls from social workers intent on prosecuting parents for a home birth. Had Jesus been born in a hospital, his blood and DNA would have been taken and entered into a government biobank without his parents' knowledge or consent. Holding onto that material, of course, the hospital and the state would have used it for research analysis and purposes yet to be disclosed. And had his parents been undocumented immigrants, they and the newborn baby might have been shuffled to a profit-driven private detention center for illegals. And once in school, Jesus would have been drilled in lessons about compliance and obedience to governmental authorities, all the while learning little about his own rights. And if you dared challenge school officials, John Whitehead says he might have found himself suspended under a zero tolerance rule that punishes minor infractions such as doodling or talking in class as harshly as more serious offenses such as bringing a weapon to class. According to Scripture, Jesus at the age of 12 wandered the temple courts in Jerusalem alone and unsupervised. Today, had Jesus disappeared for a few hours, let alone days, his parents would have been, you got it, handcuffed, arrested, and jailed for parental negligence. Parents across the country have been arrested for far less offenses, such as allowing their children to walk to the park unaccompanied or to play in front of their houses alone. If Jesus were ever to make contact with the likes of John the Baptist, he would have been flagged for surveillance because of his association with a prominent activist, peaceful or otherwise. Since 9/11, the FBI, he says, has actively carried out surveillance and intelligence gathering operations on a wide range of property rights activists, animal rights activists, anti-war organizations, threatening to, living off the grid. Those groups, they're all under surveillance. And he might have been, if he had been deemed homeless, he might have been criminalized, as in some American cities that ban camping, sleeping in vehicles, loitering, and begging in public. He might have been reported to government officials as suspicious under the Department of Homeland Security's See Something, Say Something program. I hope you never, ever call the number. Jesus would have been targeted as a domestic extremist. Law enforcement agencies are being trained to recognize signs of anti-government extremism during interactions with potential extremists who share a, quote, belief in the approaching collapse of government and the economy. And that is what, of course, the papers and the libertarian press is warning us of. Assuming Jesus used the internet to spread his radical message of peace and love, he might have found his blog posts infiltrated by government spies, attempting to undermine his integrity, to discredit Jesus, or to plant incriminating information about him online. At the very least, he would have had his website hacked and his email monitored. And he spoke... he was in the desert for 40 days, and he would have been labeled mentally ill and detained in a psych ward, possibly against his will, for mandatory involuntary psychiatric hold with no access to family or friends. It was a Virginia man, a former soldier, I think, with which John Whitehead has been involved as counsel, locked up with mental health issues, apparently because of his slurred speech and unsteady gait. we have a lot to be thankful for, don't we? Instead of being detained by Roman guards, Jesus, later on in his life, might have been made to disappear into a secret government detention center where he would have been interrogated, tortured, and subjected to all manner of abuses. Think of Homan Square, Chicago. Police disappeared 7,000 people into a secret and off-the-book interrogation warehouse. We don't have a Homan Square here in Chattanooga that I know of, but if we do, please contact me through Nooganomics.com. This is David Tulis. I do thank you for a couple of minutes of your time. I really do. Thanks.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect a cloudy, foggy, and wet start to your Wednesday with morning showers, getting warmer highs of around 70 by this evening and tonight. More scattered storms will roll in. Some of these could be strong, possibly severe, lows lower 60s. More scattered showers and storms Thursday, gradually tapering off later Christmas Day, highs back into the 70s. Everyone deserves the gift of more data, so visit Verizon online or in store to get great deals on the XL or larger sizes, then stream more and surf longer, all on the better network. And I'm Smorgasine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. CBS Radio News brought to you by Kubota. You can count on Kubota to help you get the toughest jobs done with ease, comfort, and efficiency. Whether you need a compact tractor, zero-turn mower, or diesel utility vehicle, let Kubota help you get your work done. Find your local Kubota dealer at TennesseeKubotaDealers.com.
At Kubota, there's only one thing we're selling. Great tractors.
Lay your burdens down at the Woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door. Just take some time. We're transforming life.
Happy holidays
At the Woodhouse.
from the Woodhouse Day Spa. Holiday gift cards available at Chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
You have an event coming up for the holidays, or maybe it is your daughter's wedding, or maybe just a church or office party, then you need to select Choo Choo Barbecue. That's correct, Choo Choo Barbecue. Whether you like pork, chicken, or beef, oh yes, Choo Choo Barbecue with their savory rub flavor. Oh my goodness, it's making me hungry right now. You add in their delicious smoked aroma, and you have set the table for a perfect meal with Choo Choo Barbecue. That's right, Choo Choo Barbecue. Why don't you give them a call right now? 423-843-9554. That's 843-9554. Call 423-843-9554. Choo Choo Barbecue. You know where it's located, off of Hickson Pike, right there at the Valley Brook area. Don't kid yourself. Your stomach is already on the way.
While politicians debate climate change and taking our guns, they leave America vulnerable to disaster. You need to act now to keep your family safe and prepared. Do you have an emergency plan? Do you have long-term storage food? Do you have the skills and mindset to survive a disaster? If not, what are you waiting for? Call P5 Preparedness right now, 423-602-2175. Do you honestly think the government is going to help you? If you do, you are wrong, dead wrong. Don't get caught unprepared. Let the experts at P5 Preparedness get you ready for any emergency or disaster situation. Today, we offer a wide range of classes for the beginner on how to prepare, as well as the expert prepper. We stock a wide range of supplies, including long-term storage food, water filtration, outdoor gear, tactical gear, and plate carriers. P5 Preparedness, East Brainerd Road between I-75 and Gun Barrel Road. You will see the Army Deuce and a Half truck, 423-602-2175, 1309 Panorama Drive, Chattanooga. P5Preparedness.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right channel.
Fox News Radio. I'm Pam Puso. It's a holiday tradition, last-minute shopping.
I would say it gets
crazier every single year.
Later at Minnesota's Mall of America, shoppers could collide with protesters with the Black Lives Matter movement.
The mall tried getting a court order to halt the protest on what is the busiest days for malls. The judge only banned 3 individuals organizing the event.
Fox's Eben Brown. A new poll keeps Donald Trump's frontrunner status firmly intact.
Trump's at 39% in a new national CNN ORC survey. Ted Cruz is a distant second with 18%.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland, Republicans Marco Rubio and Ben Carson are tied for 3rd place. For 3 days, he survived by eating seeds and fruit. The 19-year-old man found alive 3 days after a landslide in southern China. More than 70 people are missing. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Writers who love the liberty of killing children often appear at HuffPo, the Huffington Post. And there's one writer, Robert Kuttner, who talks about a big win for Planned Parenthood. It's such a big win for which we have to thank the Republican Party of the United States, the party of Lincoln, the party of war against the South, the public of what the Jeffersonians called internal improvements. And the idea that the Jeffersonians opposed was that the national government would not be involved in internal improvements in the states, but would leave to the states those improvements for which the state taxpayers were hit, right, with taxes. The federal government should not be involved in that. And yet that is what happened with the Great War to prevent Southern independence. We have this centralization and internal improvements at every turn, right? And abortion is one of these internal improvements, I suppose, brought about with the help of judges, the duplicity of states, and of course the agreement of police departments around the country, all of which enforced the killing of children and prevented sidewalk counselors and Operation Rescue activists from trying to save lives, trying to interpose their bodies between the scalpel and the little girl or boy dozing there in the last moments before death. And Robert Kuttner is glad about a big win for Planned Parenthood, as I say, supported by the Republican Party, that collapsed its principles long gone. And Kuttner says what happened last week with the continued funding for Planned Parenthood. What happened? First, the Democrats stood fast with reproductive rights groups. We are so glad about that, to hear about that. Second, Republicans read the polls, he says. Attacks on Planned Parenthood are political losers. Fully 60% of those polled want no cuts in Planned Parenthood funding. And third, Speaker Paul Ryan warned his troops, he says, that Republicans going into an election year could not withstand the bad publicity of being held responsible for another government shutdown. He wanted a deal more than he wanted to appease the people like you, my listener, the so-called far right. More importantly, Planned Parenthood, under the inspired leadership of Cecile Richards, don't say demonic, okay? Don't say that. That's just kind of rude. Demonstrated its skill as one of the nation's most astute political players. And he has an outbound link about how to read about Cecile Richards, who is in favor of death of girls because their mothers don't want the burden of labor, right? Don't want to have to go into Obamacare to pay for a baby to be born. That's just too much trouble. So let's dispatch our estate and dispatch our heir now. We'll do that. This Republican collapse has been so demoralizing that people such as Franklin Graham on Monday says that he's leaving the Republican Party. His post on Facebook kind of puzzled me just a little bit, and I would say it's somewhat unfocused. And he talks about this. His first sentence makes reference to the wasteful spending bill last week, and then he says, and to top it off, funding Planned Parenthood. And then he quotes this Kuttner article and says that he is leaving the Republican Party He says, unless more godly men and women get into this process and change this wicked system, our country is in trouble. I want to challenge Christians, even pastors across the country, to pray about running for office where they can have an impact. We need mayors, county commissioners, city council members, school board members who will uphold biblical values. And he's telling about a prayer tour he's going to be taking in a couple of paragraph post on Facebook. That's Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham, who is humiliated to be a member of a political party that does not defend the most basic form of capital, of human capital, which is the baby, right? A baby is a form of human capital. Every form they're in, of course, made in God's image, and each child, boy and girl, having a soul. The soul is the thing that matters, and every soul has a human body. And the body may be no more than 2 inches long. They're just after conception. It may be very small, but it has a soul, it has a sex, it has a distinct genetic identity. And the Democrats and the Republicans are conspiring to either drive the business to new heights, if possible, or to comply with a desire by that party, the Democratic Party, to allow for the slaughter of babies. Baby killing, right? Baby killing is what we have in our country. And, of course, baby killing and homosexuality are of the same idea. They uphold the ideal of personal license, the poofter and the lugbutt making his passion, his sexual passion with his male partner, or the man with the man, the ideal to uphold and have now under Obergefell versus Hodges recognized as lawful marriage, just like the marriage you have with your wife, you, my listener, here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. In other words, the gay lobby says that the private, loving, sweet relations you have with your wife are, of course, they're unique. There is fidelity required and promise. There's a promise of security. There's a promise of family in your lovemaking with your wife. And it is intimate. It is lawful. It is delightful. It is creative, right? It is procreative. And from your lovemaking with your wife come babies. And with each child, there is a new soul that God brings to the earth. It brings into the stream of the human narrative to enliven it, to enlighten it, to provide words and goods and services and products and genius and character and laughter into that great stream of humanity, each member of which God cares for personally, right? Even among those whom are not given salvation, there is God's personal care of every human being and God's government of every human being, though many are not given the grace to repent of their sins and to have life eternal. Now, connected with abortion and Planned Parenthood is, as I say, the gay theory, but not a theory pleased everywhere, not a theory having public favor at every point on the earth. The United States is in its dotterage and in its decline. It is in its senescence. It is, I would like to suggest, in its geriatric phase. We are in our geriatric phase where liberty frightens, where freedom is terrifying, and where we have to have gay marriage, because gay marriage, not producing children, not producing a future, not producing capital, is a kind of sterile maintenance of pleasure. That's about all it is. It's not more than that. Slovenians overwhelmingly reject same-sex marriage in a referendum. The date line is Ljubljana, Slovenia, and this is on lifesitenews.com yesterday posted. A pro-family coalition has won a 2-to-1 margin that overturns a statute within the government that makes marrying men a law, and that those unions are recognized. They're not recognized. A referendum earlier this year in Slovakia produced an astonishing 94% majority in the neighboring country against same-sex marriage, but only 2%, 21% of the electorate participated, far below the 50% threshold required. And then last year in Slovakia, another country now, legislators enshrined heterosexual marriage in the Constitution. The Croatian referendum, again nearby, in 2013 produced the same margin as Slovenia's and met the threshold to enshrine marriage in the Constitution. In Slovenia, the newest development is that the referendum passed by 63 to 36% margin of the popular vote, and also required or surpassed the required quorum of 30% of eligible voters, and it passed that quorum by 7 percentage points. And so that is definitely good news. Just because things are bleak here in this country, just because you think that the country is going in a southerly direction where it's very warm, unnaturally warm, like today, right? Like the weather today. There are glimmers of hope elsewhere. Just because we are in the slough of despond that Christian faced in that wonderful book, it's not universal. The coalition won its fight once in 2012, overturning a measure that extended to same-sex couples all the rights of married couples, save adoption and the use of the term marriage for their relationship. This March, a new parliament passed a law extending full recognition to same-sex marriage by a 51 to 28 margin. So the coalition at that time launched a petition to hold another referendum, and that is what passed. There's an American making comment about the Slovenian success, Peter La Barbera, head of Americans for Truth about homosexuality. It is very encouraging, he says, indicating that in reality, people are opposed to same-sex marriage, opposed to men becoming women, opposed to men marrying men whenever we go outside the decadent Western countries, such as the United States, Canada, and Northern Europe. These, in fact, are decadent. And I want you to see why. And the remedy, of course, is beyond the scale of local economy, which is our theory. That is our theory here, local economy and the free market. And in that rubric, I suggest many things that are very favorable to liberty and to prosperity. In fact, to your home life. Your life at home, my listener, is better if you borrow from the theory at Nooganomics, Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. And by the way, I am the editor of that website. And I posted a story today, and the headline is what's the headline? I've written it and I already not remembered what the story is about. But the headline is "Swayed by Envy, 12 on jury convict Hirsch of trying to live as a free man." And that is the website for the man who matters. And I'm going to be, I hope, in God's grace, going into detail about why we don't deserve constitutional government. And it's based on the humiliating defeat yesterday, the finding of guilty on 4 counts of a fine Christian man, a man of principle with good and deep knowledge of law, a private man, a laborer, no less, the intelligent laborer who has explored very important issues, and whom I was the only journalist at the trial, the only one. And among Christian people, disappointingly, there were maybe 2 people in the audience. There was no one in that empty courtroom for the last trial of the year in Lawrence County Circuit Court. 1 journalist and 2 or 3 people interested to find out what this Christian man was facing. The fiddle man of that county, the man who plays at nursing homes and for the elderly as a Christian ministry at the local hospital. And so little interest, so little care about him. All I can do is think the very worst is ahead. I think the very worst is ahead, and we are not going to get what we want. We're going to get what we deserve. But nonetheless, my goal here is to slowly alter the things that we want, to slowly suggest that the things we want matter, and that if we can improve on that list, right, the Christmas list, that God will bring blessings. He brings blessings first upon his people, the Christian church, and then indirectly and obliquely and in a downstream fashion, everybody else. So what happens in the Christian church is the most important thing in history. In all of history, what happens among that group of people, that select group of people growing exponentially in numbers, no doubt. That is the most important control of history, the rise and fall of nations, the rise and fall of cities, of tongues, of ways are connected with how people deal with God through his son, Jesus Christ, as explained in the scriptures, right? The 66 book library of the Bible explains the story of how this works. It's a marvelous account. And in that book, in the concept of Christianity, we have the many, many blessings that we enjoy today. We enjoy them even though they are precluded, right? We can see them, and some of them we can still enjoy by aftertaste, as it were. They're still there in the flavor left behind after we have swallowed. And what we swallowed is good, but now there's the pill, and we're taking, all of us, the wrong pill. There's a story that I want to mention as we're talking about massacre planning at Chat State. A story about the good people here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, and these are sheriff's department officers and police department officers. We have 7 municipal districts or towns. They all have a duty, as we would suggest, to protect the innocent, right? They have a duty to apprehend and terrorize the malefactor, and to defend the private person, personal property, personal bodily protection. And we see often that this is not happening elsewhere. In Richland County, South Carolina, remember the story about the SRO who threw a girl out of her chair, Ben Fields. He was fired, but he is not facing any legal consequences as a result of his actions. You would be. If you had done that and were caught on 2 videos, you would have been charged with assault. And the DA probably would have charge stacked you as well. But guess who's in trouble legally in this story, photographed by 2 girls with their cameras? Well, the 2 girls are, right? They're facing misdemeanor charges of disturbing schools, which could result in a $1,000 fine or 90 days in jail if they're found guilty. Rashad Robinson, executive director of Color of Change, speaks out against these charges, saying these 2 young women have suffered enough without the justice system dragging out the process of eliminating these ridiculous charges. Solicitor Dan Johnson has the ability and opportunity to do the right thing. By failing to take action, he has aligned himself with far too many prosecutors around the country who criminalize black youth while failing to hold police accountable. Black youth, black young men penalized, harassed, and the police establishment itself, no, its members get a pass. They always get a pass. You know, I've put in calls to the Fraternal Order of Police of the county. No one's called me back. I just can't get a hold of anybody who would talk to me about the laws that give department here in Chattanooga, in Red Bank, in Saudi Daisy, a special place in the law, a special protection. There's another story about a mom with 6 small children. Guess what happened to her? This is at the libertarianrepublic.com, a story that came out yesterday. Well, it's a 20-hour standoff between a SWAT unit and a man its members thought was in this woman's house in Galena, Texas. A SWAT truck with a battering ram attached was used to poke holes and tear apart the house in an attempt to drive out this suspect, a non-existent suspect. His name Doug Alexius, 40, of Joplin, Kansas, said to be armed, though no shots were fired in this story. He was wanted on felony charges in Missouri and was said to have been holed up in an attic in this woman's house, and that he was refusing to surrender. Well, he wasn't there at all. And the woman kept saying, there's nobody in my house. There's no one here. Please go away. Please stop bothering me. I've got a family. I've got my children to take care of. The homeowner is Nita Lane. She was telling the cops that the man was not there, that he does not live there. The sheriff is not apologetic. Despite being told by the victim that he was not there, David Groves maintains that his officers acted in the best possible manner. It appeared that the tool, and that's a reference to an infrared camera, there was somebody in the attic. As it turns out, now we know that was incorrect. But nonetheless, that was the information we were operating under at the time. The story is in the Boston Globe. The fugitive wanted on felony charges was believed to be holed up overnight Monday in the attic of a residence. But authorities said late Tuesday that it turned out that he wasn't in the home when they searched it. And so what you should see the photographs of this house has been wrecked. The Christmas tree turned over, property damaged, property thrown all about this. A neighbor, Vonda Macklin, she says, it's like the destroying of your dream, you know. She says after authorities tore up her neighbor's home, poking holes in the walls with an armored military vehicle to coax out the suspect. There were six children who live in this house, and here is the answer. Here's the solution about this. There's a woman named Bridget Patton from the FBI complicit in this story. She said the items were removed from the home would have been removed for officer safety or because those items could have been used by the suspect to conceal his location. So you bang up the tree, you bang up the boxes at the bottom of the tree, if this poor woman had any boxes there, because it could be used by the suspect. And here's the sheriff. After obtaining a search warrant for the resident, tactical entry teams from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the FBI were utilized to search the property. Throughout the search, it was believed Alexius was held up in a small portion of the attic, which was not conducive for law enforcement to safely access. Although the suspect was not successfully captured, meaning he wasn't there, many residents I spoke with today expressed concern. Get this now. Concern for the officer's safety, and were appreciative of our efforts to apprehend a dangerous fugitive while making it clear that law enforcement is serious and willing to go to great lengths to make sure Galena is not viewed as a safe harbor for criminals seeking refuge. This is David Tulis. I'm so tired. I'm so tired.
Expect a cloudy, foggy, and wet start to your Wednesday with morning showers, getting warmer highs of around 70 by this evening and tonight. More scattered storms will roll in. Some of these could be strong, possibly severe.